you. I could hear you all. I could hear you. I could hear you. All right. And now, Reverend Kathy will be giving us our message for this beautiful Sunday. Kathy.
Good morning, everyone. Um, Today I am speaking on a deeper look at lessons we might learn from this pandemic, from this experience that we're all going through, this strange, unique experience we're all going through. I believe it was Socrates who said, an unexamined life is not worth living. And I think there is so much to examine about what is happening and what we might learn from it, and how we might change because of it. So after the shock in these last 6 weeks, after our initial shock of being locked down and isolated and social distancing and all that, and then all these weeks where we've been doing our best to take care of fear and anxiety and perhaps loneliness sometimes, maybe boredom sometimes, we may find ourselves arriving at the question, what is the wider view of what's happening here? What is the wider view of what's happening here? You know, we've been very inside the picture. We've been told to stay inside, to stay safe, to avoid getting sick. But I think our bodies, beyond our bodies needing stretching, we need to stretch our minds, stretch out our minds, so to speak, and climb up a mountainside and get a glimpse of the greater view of what's happening. And ask ourselves, what is there for us to learn personally, for us to learn collectively, for us to learn as humanity. I think there is so much to learn, and I think we have the potential to emerge from this and create that new earth that Eckhart Tolle wrote about, that John Lennon imagined in his song. If we seize this moment and bring forth all our creativity and genius, because we are geniuses when we let God inform us, when we let greater consciousness express in us. And so if we were to wisen up and work together, we could come out of this. Not going back to normal, because normal was careening towards disaster, but come out and create a new world where we not only survive, we not only get by, but we thrive. And not a thriving for just a few, but thriving for everyone. I mentioned a while back, I saw a post that said Mother Earth has sent us all to our rooms to think about what we've done. And I've been in my tiny room in my tiny home here, thinking a lot about how we've been living as a species, how I've been living, how we've all been living on this planet, and how we're going in the wrong direction in many ways. But most of all, I've been asking, how can we recreate and re-envision and restore our world as we come out of this, as we go through this process and are reborn, really? I hear people say things will never be the same again, and maybe they shouldn't be. Maybe that old normal is not something we want to go back to or should go back to. So I believe this time we have, this time that we're in, shouldn't be squandered. There's like an important gestation that needs to happen here, where we ask ourselves an open question with curiosity and let the answers that come percolate, that inner God guidance. What are we to learn? How are we to grow? What needs changing? How can we use all that has come to pass to create a better world for everyone? I've always loved Jack Kornfield, Buddhist teacher, and he wrote a piece recently that I just thought was so beautiful. He said, "It is time to be the medicine, the uplifting music, the lamp in the darkness. Burst out with love. Be a carrier of hope If there is a funeral, send them off with a song. Trust your dignity and goodness. Where others hoard, help. Where others deceive, stand up for truth. Where others are overwhelmed or uncaring, be kind and respectful. In other words, be who we are, be who we truly are, because we know our true essence is love. We are made in the image and likeness of God, of love. So we can be the medicine when we stand down the fear with our courage. We bring forth that courage. When we dissolve the despair with our faith that comes from directly knowing and feeling our connection with Creator. We can be the medicine when we bring our light to the darkness in any simple way, in every simple way. We can be the medicine when we deeply ask to be the conscious response, to be the conscious response in action that brings a new world, a better world. So looking at the bigger picture, there seems to be a great lesson for humanity in us being stopped in our tracks, through stopping all the traveling, all the cars and the airplanes and the cruise ships and the buses and the subways and all of that. Humanity has stopped emitting a massive amount of pollution into the air. I was reading that LA last month saw its longest stretch of clean air on record. Florida's air pollution, where I used to live, decreased 30% last month. Cities in India and China saw the cleanest air on record last month. The International Energy Agency said this pandemic has caused the greatest plunge in energy demand since the Second World War, and that it will trigger multi-decade lows for the world's consumption of oil, gas, and coal. Multi-decade lows for the world's consumption of oil, gas, and coal. That's amazing. And they also said renewable and clean energy will play its largest role ever in the global energy system. So that is big, big change. And it will erase a decade's growth of global carbon emissions. So the bigger picture is we've just made a huge step towards changing our ways regarding clean energy use. We didn't do it intentionally, but it seems like it was Mother Earth's intention. And I feel there's a message coming from the animal kingdom, being that this pandemic originally likely came from bats, from an area in China where they kept animals in cages for sale. And, I saw a documentary. These cages are so small, these animals can't move, and they're basically tortured till someone buys them and they butcher them on the spot. It's just a horrible thing, and it's such inhumanity to animals, and it's wrong, and that it needs to change. And apparently it has been outlawed in some places in China. And then there's this other thing happening with animals. All these meat plants all over the place are having outbreaks, right? It's affecting meat production and distribution. So I've been asking, what can a meat shortage teach us? Why is this light being shown on that industry, especially? Perhaps for the first time, some people might consider surviving without meat or eating less meat. I think it's important to take a look at how much land is destroyed so it can be turned into grazing land to raise animals for consumption. So apparently more people are becoming vegans right now, which I think is a good thing for our planet. The animals are also returning to areas not seen in years. There was a village, I read about a village in Wales that locals said went from a ghost town to a goat's town. A goat's town. It was overrun with happy goats, and they're happy because all the humans are stuck in their homes and they get to just run around town. Bears are thoroughly enjoying and partying in Yosemite without the tourists there. In Dubai, there was a sighting of a giant pod of dolphins, nearly 2,000 dolphins, the most they've ever seen there. And all of this is inspiring conservationists to push to increase protected areas for wildlife. So with less travel, less manufacturing, less consuming, less commercial fishing, less crazy busy humans, the environment, the animals, the air, the water, the land is all benefiting. So maybe part of the big picture lesson is if we're really motivated, we can stop the madness of living in such an unsustainable way and stop being out of touch with the sacredness of Earth and all her creatures. There's a beautiful prayer that I found from an Ojibwe elder, Art Solomon, from Canada, that I'd like to share with you. He wrote, "Grandfather, look at our brokenness. We know that in all creation, only the human family has strayed from the sacred way. We know that we are the ones who are divided, and we are the ones who must come back together to walk in the sacred way. Grandfather, Sacred One, teach us love, compassion, and honor, that we may heal the earth and each other." We may heal the earth and each other. So be that. So be that. Mother Earth gave us a time out. She sent us to our rooms all right. And we get to come out when we figure out that we can live without the crazy level of consumption and out of control greed that was our normal up until 6 weeks ago. We get to come out when we are humbled and realize some very important things. That maybe we don't want to go back to normal. Maybe we want to create a much better new normal where we buy less stuff and we grow more of our own food, which I know all of you are doing in Oroville. We use less gas. We own less clothes. We make our clothes. I love to sew. I still have my sewing machine from 1970. We buy locally. We build and live in smaller homes. We have fewer children, and we create less pollution. Those are a lot of lessons right there. A lot of important lessons for us to get. The other big message this fire offers us is that we are one. You know, I think for a lot of people it's a concept. But we are one web of life that is all interconnected. And this is showing us that, this experience with this coronavirus. There's a story that Alma likes to tell about a man who was living on the 10th floor of an apartment building. And one day he heard this man shouting from the first floor, just yelling, "Fire, fire." And he went out on his balcony and he looked down and he saw this man, calling for help. And the man thought to himself, "It's the ground floor that's on fire. That's your problem. That's not my problem. Why should I worry about it?" We can see the absurdity of that. But the person on the 10th floor doesn't see that, doesn't see that that ground floor is going to affect him. And I feel like we have this mentality going on right now in our country. People don't like being confined. Of course, none of us do. We don't like wearing a mask. We don't like having to take precautions. And people are protesting, that they should have to care about that fire on the ground floor, right? When they live way up above. But it's a powerful lesson in not being selfish, in realizing our choices are not only about us. It's a lesson in moving from the me to the we. From the me to the we. We all matter. We all matter. And that includes people that are in nursing homes and people incarcerated. They matter. They do not deserve to be forgotten or overlooked right now. They are our extended family. They are our brothers and sisters. They are our parents. They are fellow humans, and they are part of God, too. So maybe that's another lesson, that prisons should not be for-profit places, and that we should have less of them and more effective rehabilitation centers. And another quote from the elder Art Solomon. He describes a time of living in a wiser way, the Aboriginal society before the arrival of Europeans. He writes, "We were not perfect, but we had no jails. We had no taxes, no wine and no beer, no old people's homes, no children's aid society. We had no crisis centers. We had a philosophy of life based on the Creator. We had our humanity." So in closing, let this long pause we're in be like the time that a caterpillar spends in the cocoon, a time of listening for the voice within of the Creator, a time of percolating and receiving the guidance that will show us how to create a new world that our hearts, I know all of our hearts so deeply desire and envision and imagine. We can then emerge. We can, after this time in this cocoon and this birthing that's happening in all of us and all of us together apart, we can emerge changed and winged and beautiful, as beautiful harbingers of a new, recovered, restored, in balance, and beautiful world. And every one of you, you are an essential part of this new world. Let the intelligent God of your being weave the unique and precious strand that you are to bring to the sacred web of life. Let it be so. Thank you all. God bless.
Thank you, Kathy. Amen.
I'm going to unmute everybody here for a minute so we can say hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello.
Amen.
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 Roger.